What are some creepy encounters you've had? While working at a Jimmy John's, I did bike delivery, and I just got back from a delivery with this lady walking in the store behind me. She asked for a co-worker, by first and last name. He was working but out on delivery, which we explained to her. Deliveries don't take long, so he was to return within 5 minutes. She said it was fine, and let him know his mom stopped by, then she left. My co-worker came back about 5 minutes after, and we told him about his mom stopping by, to which he replied, "My mom died when I was 3. We were all a little weirded out. This wasn't his hometown, which was 5 hours away. And going on 9 years later, we never seen or heard about this lady again. The creepiest thing is to walk alone as a young girl. I remember a car with 2 grown men in it asking if I wanted a ride. I was 12. I told them I lived right across the street. I did not. They kept following me, and I walked up some random person's driveway and hid on the side of their house, making sure not to move because they had motion sensors. IDK why I didn't knock and ask for help. I guess I was afraid of what would happen if they didn't answer. They stayed down the street for like 15 minutes waiting for me to come back out. Edit, change something for clarity LOL. I was hanging out with a co-worker. It was supposed to be me and another co-worker of ours, my friend, but she couldn't make it last minute. We were watching a movie and he attacked me and held me down. He was trying to undo my pants. I kept telling him to get off of me and he wouldn't. I was terrified. He was way stronger than me and I couldn't fight him off. Finally I told him if he didn't get off, I was going to tell everyone at work, and that my friend that cancelled knows exactly where I am. He let me go and started calling me a bitch and other nasty names. I had to see his smiling creepy face every time I went to work for months after. Some years ago I went to 7-Eleven with my then boyfriend. He went to the falafel place next door while I picked up some snacks. I was just leaving the 7-Eleven when a strange man asked me what I was doing that night. I said, hanging out with my boyfriend. He said, wanna come to a Halloween party with me instead? I was nervous and this caught me off guard, so I kind of nervously laughed, said no thank you, and walked away from him and to the falafel place next door. I told my boyfriend about it and stuck close to him leaving the falafel place. As we were walking back to my BF's place, I saw the stranger driving away in a white van. A few weeks later I saw him on the bus and pretended not to notice him. Luckily he didn't seem to notice me, or much around him at all. He seemed to be on drugs and was banging on the bus window and muttering to himself. I've had the same creepy older man pop up in the background of 5 different pictures that were all taken at different places on different days. I'm pretty sure he was stalking me, cause it's not like he'd just be walking by in the pic. No, he'd be standing in the background looking at the camera. I understand it happening once or twice could be a coincidence, but 5 times is way too many for it to have been chance. Edit, I've gotten a lot of questions. I'll be back shortly to answer them all. Edit 2. Note these were taken years ago with disposable cameras. I was early double digits 10/11ths. I didn't find them till I was like 16/17ths. I have doubles and film scans upstairs in my attic. Illinois, post them if I can find them. I have giant tubs of photos from disposable cameras. Also the police were shows the film scans, double copies. But because so many years had passed and the quality of disposable cameras weren't the best, you couldn't really make out who a person was when they were lurking in the background. The police did make scans of them, so if I can't find them maybe they'll still have them on records. Regardless, if I do manage to come up with them, I too post them ASAP. I go for lots of night walks and my area is a bit sketchy, so hell I have tons of stories I could tell. Snowing night about 2 years ago. Was going for a walk around 3 a.m. I was walking on a narrow pathway in a pretty rural area. It was the middle of the night, so it was absolutely pitch black. I could see absolutely nothing, but kept walking straight. Reached an area of the pathway where a small light in the distance lit up the path a little more so I could see my direction better. That's when I saw something obstructing my pathway. There was some sort of object in the direction I was walking. A pretty tall object, looked like a sign or something, so I kept walking. As I got closer, I started making out more about this object, and I realized it was actually the silhouette of someone standing there. There was literally a fucking person standing in my way, 3 a.m. on a dark path. One probably stood there, completely frozen for a few seconds, trying hard to process what I was seeing, and what the fuck to do. The figure I was seeing didn't move either. Nope, I turned the hell around and walked straight the way I came, no hesitation. I was sitting in a coffee shop when an older man approached me. He sat down at my table and struck up a conversation with me. He wanted to know all sorts of stuff. We chatted for a while, and then it got around to how old I was. He was shocked I was older, and once he found out, he got up and left. I was glad he was gone. I went to pay my tab and the barista asked me if that old guy was bothering me. I told him not really, but I was glad he left. A day later, I was at a strip club with my boyfriend and that guy was there. He approached me again and offered me $500 to go up on stage and strip. I declined. He struck up a conversation again with me. He told me he was a Vietnam vet, and then let me know he had killed a lot of women and children. He told me he liked to rape them and then slit their throats. I noped the fuck out of there. I ran back to my boyfriend and told him what the guy said, but the guy was gone by the time the bouncer went to look for him. A day later the news broke that somebody had been killed downtown. A young girl. Someone had stabbed her in the throat from behind, dragged to an alley and raped her while she bled out. I worked with the chief of police's daughter. She told us to watch out because her dad said there was a serial killer running around. She said that this person was traveling 40, and they suspected he was some sort of traveling salesman. That guy told me that he was a traveling salesman going between Asheville and Indianapolis. He liked to stop in small towns and meet women. I never saw him again after that. I think it was him, though. I was taking care of some work business when I saw some short bulky guy wearing a suit walk in the building. So he just stands there, scoping the workplace and observing. The creepy part came after, when both my colleagues said that he asked for me by name, but left just when I became available. I asked them if this was some joke, which they denied. He never returned, and despite making casual eye contact, I never even recognized him from anywhere. I was around 11/12 back in the 80s. There was a little corner cafe close to where I lived and I used to go there after school to play arcade games. People would often stand there and watch you play, or would take turns, etc. Sometimes other kids, sometimes adults. The one day an older guy, mid-20s or so, stood there and watched me play for a good hour and then suddenly asked if I liked Coke. As in the soft drink. Sure, said, and proceeded to put another coin in for another game. Well, I have some Coke in my app and I live right above the store. Stop by when you're done and I'll give you some. Ah, okay man, will do. He left. I kept on playing, not intending to go anywhere near his app for whatever reason he had in mind. About 30 minutes later he was back down again, and wanted to know why I hadn't come up yet. I told him I'm just finishing my game. He said okay and left. I ran home soon, as he was out of sight, didn't go back to that place for quite a while. Already posted to this thread, but just remembered this nugget from high school. I was in marching band in 9th and 10th grade, and it was pretty standard for friends, relatives, and other town community members to show up and specifically support the band. The football team sucked ass. One time at an away game, a man, whom I assumed was one of the kids' relatives or whatever, came up to me and asked if he could take a picture. I say yes and start posing with my friends for a group photo, when I notice that he turns the camera orientation from landscape to portrait. In the chaos of the game, no one else is really paying attention to what's going on. He takes the photo before I can process what's happening, looks down at it, smiles and kind of chuckles, and then walks away. I ask everyone around me if they knew the guy and no one did. Maybe he wasn't a creepo, after all, and I was just being paranoid, but the whole thing definitely felt weird. But also, who the fuck would want a picture of a single random high school girl in an ugly marching uniform? My creepiest encounter is kind of an odd one. I had left this girl's house late one night, and stopped at a gas station to grab some Copenhagen. I saw these two guys staring me down while I was inside. I didn't worry about it, but made sure to keep my eyes open. I went back to my truck parked in front of the gas station doors and see these two guys bolt out a few seconds after me and hop in their car parked at the pumps behind my truck. One keep an eye on them and they are just sitting there watching me. I wait about 5 minutes and turn on my truck. They immediately turn on their car. I sat for another 10 minutes unsure if I'm being paranoid or if I should call 911. I'm not sure why, but I see headlights pulling into the parking lot on my left. I turned and saw red and blue lights on top, followed by another city cop and 2 more sheriff's deputies. As soon as those cars pulled in, those guys in that car speed out of the parking lot onto the main road, cutting off an all-black unmarked Dodge Charger that immediately turns on red and blue lights. I've never felt so lucky before in my life. I carry and had my Glock 21 with me that night, but I am so glad I never had to use it. Once me and my friend, at the time 17, were hanging out on the rooftop of a mall, it was a garden, when this homeless man came along and started talking to us. We tried to be polite and listen to what he had to say, and he started talking about this woman he was in love with and how he can't see her for some reason or other. He had a bag which he opened and offered us items, such as markers and other things he'd found. I decided to take a small clock, which was definitely stolen, and my friend asked for a cigarette. He later threw it out cause he didn't trust it being broken. He kept saying how cute of a couple we were, and my friend kept telling him I had someone already. When he would talk, he would be right up in our faces, and it was super uncomfortable. We soon escaped and talked to some friends about it. Turns out he was a pedo who kept hitting on kids around the mall. He didn't really hit on us, but it was really weird that he started talking to us while we were minding our business. I have a pretty weird encounter that I now consider creepy when I look back at it. When I was in 7th grade, I didn't have many friends, and one day I was very sick, so I was home for a bit, and I had this dream where this being visited me and told me that he'd be my friend and watch over me. So when I woke up, I saw this thing at my bed that I made from my imagination, and I named him Glitchy. Glitchy was very nice to me, but he had a weird grudge on other humans. One time my cousin was over and she got locked in the bathroom, and she was screaming that there was something in there with her, and I yelled, "Glitchy, open then door now." And the door suddenly swung open. Other instances included my family and siblings not wanting to play hide and seek with me because there was a shadow man behind me, but I didn't mind. I told Glitchy to sit with me and watch TV. I have many more stories that I might post if anyone is interested, and me looking back on it now, I find it kinda creepy that maybe there was something there rather than it being just one of my imaginary friends. So this happened to my little brother. However, throughout the years he's brought it up, and we both get heebed out. We were traveling back home via bus. I was 12 and he was 8 years old at the time. We were sitting next to each other on the first row. He says that around midnight, and while I was asleep, I get very carsick and take pills to knock TF out. The bus driver asked him to sit on the steps leading up to the bus. So he did. As he recalls, the bus driver was making him laugh and just asking general questions. Then he asked him, in what he describes as a low and neutral voice, "Want to drive? You can come sit on my lap and I too let you take over the wheel." My brother contemplated it, but opted not to, because in his very innocent childlike mind, he was afraid he'd crash the bus. The driver persisted once or twice more, saying he would be careful and help him, but thankfully, my brother said no. They talked a bit more, but after a few minutes the driver told him it would be safer if he went back to his seat. WTF. In retrospect, he feels that the bus driver was probably thinking of doing something much more sinister if he had sat on his lap. The bus was pitch black inside, as most everyone was sleeping. Driving through rural areas for hours with no city lights or cars. We often say that the driver would have probably threatened him with something such as, "If you move or scream, we will crash the bus, and you will be blamed for it." Maybe we are wrong for thinking that way, lol, but seriously, what grown man asks a random kid to drive a bus full of people? Talk about creeper. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this one.